welcome back to Brewing Murder and Mystery. I'm your host, Heather. I really have to stop sitting in this chair because it spins and I want to do this while I fidget, which I'm just going back and forth if you're not watching me. But I really need to stop. I need to stop. I need a chair that just stays still. Also, I got a lot of good feedback on my last makeup video. It seemed like people enjoyed it. I was surprised. And I just figured, why not go for round two? This case today has me a little anxious because there is so much to remember. My brain is like, oh my goodness, I was not good in history. I failed all of the talk about, the dates for everything. So this one has me a little stressed, but I'm going to do my best because we are going to talk about some Ukraine. This is on you. This is your big serial killer. And I frankly, disclaimer, it's disturbing today. There is going to be some talk about some assault happening to minors. So if you are not comfortable with that, this is your disclaimer. This case is I'm going to say wild. It's wild, but I'm going to try to I'm trying to think of words besides wild and doozy because I'm like, that's a doozy, this one. This I feel like I should already start over because I'm already like, okay. Today's episode is about a serial killer in the Ukraine, and I am shocked, which is hard to do. I'm mainly shocked at the fact that this case doesn't have more attention. Like, I don't think people really know a whole lot about this. So we are going to bring it to light and talk about Andrei Chikatilo. So if you have heard about this story already, then this will not surprise you. But if you have not, it's about ready to get real nasty. Is that a word? Nasty? Can I say that? Like nasty? Yeah. So Andrei Chikatilo was born October 16th of 1936, and he was from this Ukraine village that's part of the USSR. And during the time that Andrei was born, the Ukraine was going through some serious poverty because of Joseph Stalin. Now, Joseph Stalin had this forced collective agriculture. It was supposed to be a 5-year plan, but when does the government ever make it on time, right? They're always late to the game. So the whole point of this was basically these farmers would have to give over their crops and like give it to the general public, and then therefore they had a really hard time surviving themselves. They wouldn't be paid for their labor. It was more like, well, we're going to take your stuff and you're going to get to keep a tiny little plot of land behind your shack, your little tiny house. So both of Andrei's parents were part of this labor farming program. And as somebody who has gardened before, like, a little tiny plot of land does not feed your family. Like, you got to get other stuff. So they don't have money. They're starving. The whole entire situation was just crazy. Like, you're either really, really rich and you're able to handle it, or you're really, really poor. There really isn't like a middle class. So Andrei's parents were super, super poor. And Andrei goes on record saying that there was times where he just ate grass and leaves to like sustain himself. Now, Andrei had never even eaten bread until the age of 12. This is how poor they are. His mom, on top of this, would tell Andrei the story about this apparent older brother he had. Now, the older brother's name was Stepan, And he was 4 years old and kind of wanders off, and the neighbors kidnap him, murder him, and cannibalize him. How terrifying for a child to hear a story like that. I mean, I wouldn't trust anybody. Like, the neighbors come over and be like, But we actually don't have any proof if Stepan actually is even a real person. Back then, with the starvation and the war and everything that's going on, record keeping was not top priority. So there is no records that this child existed. But I mean, there was lots of people born who didn't have records of their existing. So we don't know. During this time, World War II is going on, and Andrei's dad gets like he decides to go into the military. It sounded like they didn't really have a choice. It was just like, you just go. I don't think it was a draft, but they didn't have a choice. He goes off to fight for the USSR, and this would make things in his family go from like bad to horrible. So the Nazis move into the general area, are already causing havoc. Andrei said that he witnessed bombings, fires, shootings. His mother and him would hide in cellars and basements and ditches just to protect themselves, even witnessing their own little tiny hut getting burnt down to the ground. Now, Andrei and his mom would end up having to share this 1-bedroom shack and even have to share a bed because they're poor, and this is what they can get. So they're not being picky about it. Andrei had this little problem that grows to be a big problem. Basically, they found out later on that he had hydrocephalus. This is water on the brain. It can cause all kinds of issues. One of those issues being bedwetting up until like later on in life. So we're talking about like older teens. This can also lead to like urinary tract problems. And for men, this can lead to erectile dysfunction. His mom, not understanding this condition, berates him and basically beats him, humiliates him for this bedwetting problem. She's not happy. She's also got to share this bed. And this kid is just like going through some stuff. On top of all this, with the Nazis moving in, they are taking advantage of all the citizens, right? So one of the things that they're doing is they're actually raping the women in the villages. Andrei witnesses his own mom being one of these victims. More trauma, he's going through all this, noticing like bombings and everything, and then he notices this happening to his mom. Now, she would actually become pregnant, and everybody kind of knows what's going on because the dad is away at war, so the math doesn't add up that when she has the baby, that dad was around. She would have a little girl and name her Tatiana. But the dad seems like he's a good guy because he never once denies like her as his daughter, and she even talks about him really fondly. But the mom, they both kind of talk about her just being kind of like brutally mean to them. I don't know. She was like the tough parent. The dad ends up actually getting wounded while he's in battle, and this would lead to him getting captured. Now, Joseph Stalin had it out for anybody who allowed themselves to get captured and didn't like end their own life. So it's this whole kind of, I understand it a little bit because of culture, but some of it is just like, you're a coward, you allowed yourself to get taken. But Joseph Stalin was really paranoid. So the thought process was like, you're going to tell our secrets. Why wouldn't you just take your life? But no, you allowed yourself to get captured. So you must be a traitor. This gets broadcasted on to the media. Like, everybody knows that his dad gets taken and gets basically traitor status. This would lead to the kids at school picking on him and being really mean to him. And then they were already picking on him because of his appearance. I mean, these kids have like, you know, money. I don't know. Kids have always been cruel. Do I ever read a story where the children at school are like pleasant? I guess not. Kids do better. But he's getting picked on left and right for his appearance. He's now getting picked on because of his dad. And it was said that he kind of had a timid spirit personality. So he's like more on the shy side. So he's getting picked on for that as well. And he's just shutting down. This is causing him to like not even communicate while he's in school. He comes up with a plan, and this just is wild to me. But his sister has this friend, and he decides that he is going to assault the friend. She's only 11 at the time, and he is 15 years old. So when the friend comes over to visit his sister, he attempts to rape her. But during this attempt, he actually like finishes early, has like his release early. I hope you get it right, because it's awkward. And this is embarrassing to him. So the assault stops. It's like, thank the Lord, right? But somehow the kids at school find out about this attempt, and instead of like reporting him to police, they just make fun of him. Like, you can't even assault a girl properly. So can we talk about the thinking of the children, because that is insane to me, that their thought process is on making fun of him over the fact that it's like, I mean, what is going on in these kids' lives? Like, why are they the way that they are? But I mean, it just goes to show you, like, they're going through, I mean, they're witnessing stuff that this is apparently hilarious. So his self-esteem takes even further. I don't feel bad for him about that, because I mean, come on, what were you trying to do? But the point is, his self-esteem tanks. He finally is like, I'm getting done with school. He's 17 years old. He decides to go apply to get into Moscow's university. He takes the exams and like passes, but the school deems him as his grades not being good enough to get in. He gets denied. He believes that it's because of his father. Like, his father's tainted name is causing him to not get into the school. The school goes on to say, like, no, there was just other people that were performing better than you, but he would not have it. He is for sure that he is not being accepted because of his dad. Now, his dad ends up coming back from the war and actually has tuberculosis. I mean, this family just cannot catch a break on like raw dealings. During this time that he gets denied, he decides to move to, I think it's called Kirsch. It's Kursh, Kirsch. And here he gets a job for 3 months, does like a little bit of work, and then decides to go do a vocational school where he becomes like a technician. Area of his life seems to start picking up. He actually gets his first ever like real relationship girlfriend. They seem to really hit it off, and he's starting to feel really good about life. But unfortunately, during this 18 months that they're dating, they attempt to have relations 3 times to where he is unable to perform. This causes her to break up with him. And I mean, as girls do, she tells people, like, why? So gossip and whispers start going around about his inadequate, how he cannot perform, and he is just mortified, right? Like he's thinking, no girl is going to want me. So he actually attempts to hang himself, but his mom and some neighborhood girls see what's going on. I don't know if they like walk in during this act or what, but they end up coming to his rescue. The mom and the girls are able to get the noose off of his neck and get him down, but he's in this bad mindset anyways. So you don't just like try to kill yourself and then get saved and you're like, yay, everything's better. So he moves away. This is when he ends up in Rostova. Now, his younger sister would move in with him, actually, and she is concerned about her brother. She is like, you need a social life, you need a girlfriend. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings on this because like, did she know what he tried to do to your friend? But I don't know. I guess she's just like a daunting sister and she just loves him and wants everything that's best for him. She ends up hooking him up with her friend who's named Feodosia. Feodosia is a 24-year-old daughter of a coal miner, and all the articles refer to her as a spinster, which, if you're not familiar, the word spinster means like out of marrying age. So that really cracks me up. Like the difference of times when you're considered a spinster for being 24 and unmarried. Like that is so wild. They get together and they're they're like, we don't have any other potential prospects. Let's get married. And they end up getting married in 1963. Well, what do we know about Andrei? We know that Andrei cannot perform sexually. They don't have normal relations. This would lead. This is awkward. This is awkward. This would lead to a basically masturbation self-insemination process. I did not dig any farther than that. You are free to, but I was like, oh, okay. And this attempt would actually lead to success 2 years later when they would have their first child together, which is like, wow, that's amazing. And then about 4 years into the marriage, they would have another child. So to the outside world, they just look like a normal family. I mean, they're not sharing their bedroom business, you know? I mean, eventually he did, but at the time he's not, right? He gets his teaching degree in 1971. I guess he was done with the technician stuff. And he starts teaching at the school. Now he's got himself 3 degrees and starts feeling like I deserve a little respect around here. Because prior to this, remember, like he's not getting respect. Like the kids at school didn't give him respect. He's ready. He's ready for his appreciation. Like he wants to be appreciated. He wants to be respected. He is tired of living in his dad's shadow. So when he goes off to the school, that's what he is expecting to happen. But here's the kicker. The, these kids don't. They don't respect him. They actually nickname him the Goose, which is the equivalent of saying jerk in America. They're like he can't hold a room. He's boring. All of those things. Let me finish my eyes because this is really hard. Are those even? I don't even know. I can barely tell in this mirror. So I'd ask you, but I don't know if I want you guys to tell me the truth. Don't tell me the truth if these are not even. So he goes to this. He's upset. He's teaching. The kids don't like him, and then to top it all off, these kids are falling in love. Right? They're having their own relationships, and this is infuriating to him because he just feels like he is gotten a raw deal. Like these kids can have relationships, and he cannot even have like basic nature relationships. So what does he do? He starts violating children at the schools. And boys and girls, it didn't matter. I'm like, how did he do this? Like, how do people get away with this stuff for so long? But this ends up happening, and eventually the school gets reports of this. Even some teachers said that they saw him doing inappropriate things. So they decide to let him go. They didn't want their name taken through the mud. They didn't want the secrets of what was going on to get out. They don't tell anybody why he's fired. They just let him go in a hush hush. We don't want to be responsible for this situation, which allows him to move on and just go to another school, right? Like, the bad guy doesn't get in trouble. It's not like he's just gonna be like, oh darn, I should stop living that way. And the wife kind of knows that something is going on, but she doesn't know what. But she's getting a little suspicious about, like, why are you getting fired from the school? But he manages to smooth it over with her, and they just move on with their lives. During this move, he actually is able to buy a secret house, which we find out is just a shack, but his family doesn't know about it, because he's got kids now. And he has got one thing a brewing on his mind, and that is murder. He is done with people. He's done with his own issues. He wants respect, and he wants it however he wants it. What happens is he ends up luring this 9-year-old girl. I guess the way he like lures her in is he tells her he's going to give her bubble gum, which is a big deal because this is World War II. Bubble gum is not like, there's not a ton of it, and if you were poor or anything, you're not getting bubble gum. So he lures this poor little 9-year-old girl with the idea that he's going to take her back to his house, give her bubble gum. But when he gets to his house, he attempts to rape her. But we know he has problems in that area, so he cannot perform. Shocker. And unfortunately, this angers him, and he stabs this little girl 3 times in the abdomen. Now, when he stabs her, he ends up having his release, and this would just really solidify for him like violence and sexual, like, what's it called, sexual sadist, sexual sadist, right? Like that's how he's going to be getting his jollies, is by violence. So he ends up strangling the little girl after this and takes her body down to the river that's close to the house, tosses her body into it, and like her belongings and all that. And then she is found 2 days later. There are eyewitness accounts that Andrei was with this little girl, but his wife gives an alibi for the time of the murder. And police look into the background of Andrei, and they see that he's a father, he's a family man. The schools never reported his issues, so he doesn't have any criminal record. They're like, it can't be this guy. He's also a communist like party member, so they just think this guy is like an outstanding citizen. It can't be him. And they've got an alibi, and they just overlook the eyewitness testimonies. There is another guy who is in the local area who has a criminal record. He had raped and murdered somebody previously. He'd already done his time for it, but he's out. They arrest him for this murder. That's a whole nother long story. But they end up even getting his wife to change her. Like, she has an alibi for him, but she like changes it because of I mean, that's a whole nother story. A whole nother story about, torture and how they get people to confess to things back then. And this guy actually ends up getting convicted and put to death for the murder of this little girl. So Andrei is, I don't know if he's scared, like I almost got caught, but for 3 years, he doesn't commit any more murders. This time period could also have been because people are getting wind of what he's doing at the schools, at this new school. People don't want him around their children. They don't want him teaching. So he's having a rough time. And he ends up finding another job where he's going to travel for a living. Well, this ends up being perfect. Like, what serial killer doesn't want a traveling job? So he's excited and he takes this traveling job where he's going to be going from like bus stations to train stations. And he lures in a 17-year-old girl. 1981, he lures in his next victim. Now, he's getting older. He's not like a young guy. And it says that he basically tries to have like a normal relationship with her again. And I'm like, what 17-year-old is want to be this old guy? But I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is real. This is just his account, right? And she and him cannot perform. Again, are we surprised? This is where he just, like, all the anger that he has been building up for his entire life is stored up and he just releases it on this poor victim. Okay. There is no holding back, in the point that he even cuts out her uterus, and he never admits to eating female organs, but he admits to cutting them out and, his words, nibbling on them, and he even goes into detail about the texture. So there you go. Do with that as you will. So basically, he attacks this girl. And now this has just opened up his world. He is ready to keep going, keep committing murder, and it doesn't matter if it's boys, girls. He doesn't care. He's targeting runaways that he's meeting at these bus stops and train stations. And if he couldn't get boys and girls, then he would target prostitutes. But his real desire were these young boys and these young girls. Once the victims are lured into the woods with him and they're secluded, this is where he again would try to rape them, and he wouldn't be able to. So they would be stabbed, and this would lead to him cutting out organs and those kinds of things. Now, the one thing that would happen to all these bodies that he didn't admit to, like, eating, was that he would slash a knife across their eyelids and remove the eyes. The reason for this was there was kind of a superstition going around that the victims of murder were like frozen in fear. And the last image that they see is left like an imprint on the eyes. And the thought is that Andrei would cut the eyes out so that the police couldn't figure it out. Like, I guess in the 80s, he thinks that they have enough technology to like view eye images. I don't know. But it's like a wives' tale or something, and he's just not taking any chances. So this actually allows the police to realize that these murders are all connected, even though they're just spread out all over the place, because they all look exactly the same and they're all now missing their eyes. Now, the Soviet Union at the time, the media is really tight-lipped about things, especially stuff going like towards children. Serial killers, like, people didn't know what a serial killer was because it wasn't publicized. The media is not reporting on this. This leads to massive speculation. And the speculation that's going around, because these are brutal killings and like torture, I mean, like these slashes across the eyes and everything, they think that this is either like a foreign plot or werewolves. That's crazy, because this is going up until, like, we're talking not that long ago, 70s, 80s, and people are thinking that there's werewolves running around. I mean, I guess it's fair to say, because the media is like not even touching it. I thought that was really interesting, considering the fact it's like, how do people still believe in werewolves? Well, in the 80s, they still believed that it was happening. The police know what's going on, though, because, I mean, this is not their first serial killer. I mean, I'm assuming, right? A Moscow detective is assigned to this case in 1983, to where he right away is like, we need to try to get a hold of this because we're getting desperate. At the time, they are relating 23 murders to this serial killer. That is a big number. They decide that they are going to do this American technique, and this American technique is called profiling. So they're going to like profile, like they've heard of it and they're going to do it. There is a few samples that they've been able to find at the scene, and these samples are also AB blood type. Now, the AB blood type is really interesting because, well, I'm going to get to that. Okay. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. On September 13th, this detective arrests Andrei because he's at the bus station and he is acting suspiciously. But they, again, they look into his background and they're like, oh, you're a father and a good citizen. And he actually has a bag on him that has tape, rope, knives, like what we would call a kill kit. But he doesn't have a criminal record. So they let him go. And they do take a swab before he leaves, but the swab comes back as A blood type. Now, this is why I was like, remember AB to A blood type. Because he is known, I guess if you're A, B, or AB blood type, you can be a non-secretor. Now, a non-secretor is somebody who you can only know their true blood type by taking a blood sample. Otherwise, you can get different matches. So like your saliva could be a different blood type than your semen. So his semen was coming out AB and his saliva was just A. They're looking at evidence, right? And they're like, this can't be the guy. So they let him go. Even though it's like, this guy clearly needed to be arrested. He's acting crazy and he's got a kill kit. It's not like he was walking around like, I'm a butcher and this is my, I don't know. How do you talk yourself? How do you talk the police out of that? I don't know. So they let him go. But they discover that later on. That was just a really interesting side ramble. They decide to do this profiling and they actually get this guy named Victor to start looking into this. And this profiling takes a couple of months to do, but the police are originally thinking like it's got to be a local guy who's young. He's got to be like a pervert, like everybody's going to know. You don't go near that guy cuz he's the pervert. But that isn't what the profiling comes back to say. The profiling comes back to say that the guy is probably married, could be single, but probably married, does not have a sexual relationship with the wife. Wow, that's on point. And that he probably is kind of like a shy, timid guy, which Andrei was. So, and then he just like lacked control. That was the other one, that he like lacked, you know, like self-control and self-work, That's what it was. I thought, wow, that's super spot on. But isn't it usually? Now, Andrei actually gets in trouble for some like small petty crime stuff and does about a few months in jail and is released in 1988, where he just goes right back to killings. And some people would definitely say that he got sloppy. Maybe he wanted to be caught. Like maybe he was kind of getting to that stage in life where he's just tired of what he's doing. I don't know. But again, he's arrested for acting suspiciously at a train station. So they watch him for a little while. They're like, what in the world? He is trying to get like lure a girl in, and when that doesn't happen, he like kept moving on from like a young girl to like young, like he just kept moving along. They arrest him and they bring him in for questioning, to which like they don't get a confession from him, but they are thinking this could be our guy. So Victor decides to bring in the original profiler to see if he can get something out of him. So the original profiler goes in. He's like, I'm not a detective. I'm not here to judge you. I am fascinated with how your brain works and like what you're doing. This is music to Andrei's ears because he has wanted notoriety, respect for so long. So he's thinking this guy is interested in me. He possibly is going to write a book about me. He just spills the beans and goes into great detail about all these murders, which is crazy because they're thinking there's like 32 murders at the time. Well, he's like, there's 56. 56 victims. Ah. So he goes into great detail. I mean, they bring in like a fake dummy and he's like showing them how he kills these people, right? And like talks about everything that he's doing. So they're like, well, we need to, like, we don't believe you about these ones, right? So they're like trying to get him to show him where these other ones are, which he takes them out. He's like, start digging here. They only account for 53 of the victims. And he's just like, well, I did 56. So, like, the arrogance, right? Like it's not my fault. You can't do your job. I killed 53 people. It just sickening, right? Just like sick. He gets arrested for these, of course, and they got the confession. He goes to trial. Now, I don't know how things are in the Ukraine today. So you could let me know in the comments, but they have to put him in a metal cage, and this metal cage is for his own safety because the families of these 53, 56 victims are like screaming and pleading with the judge, like, give us this guy, like, we want to kill him. And the judge, of course, doesn't, but he had to be protected from the community, which is not a shocker. You kill my kid, I'm gonna just keep those thoughts to myself. He goes on trial, and this trial starts in April 14th of 1992, and it takes 2 full days to read just his charges. That's how many there were. Oh my goodness. That's insanity to me. So then he has the opportunity to make a statement to where he's 2 hours long. He not only acts bored, but he then immediately goes to acting like a maniac and exposes himself, which I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's legal? Like, you're allowed to do that? But he ends up exposing himself and just acting crazy, which the thought process is that he's trying to act insane. The trial lasts it starts in April, it ends in August, to where he is found guilty. It takes all the way until October for them to come up with his sentencing, where he gets found 52 of the 53 victims that they found, he gets the death penalty for. And then he tries to appeal, basically saying that his psych evaluation that says that he was sane enough to stand trial was biased and that he actually wasn't sane, and that gets denied. What ends up happening then is, I believe it was 16 months later, he gets executed with one single shot to the back of the head on Valentine's Day, February 14th of 1994. Look at that. Couldn't have planned it better if I tried. A Valentine's Day serial killer for you. How are we doing? Are we good? Like, that was a lot of information. I probably forgot some of it while I was in the middle of trying to do my makeup. But, oh man, it's just crazy. Like 56 victims. Ugh. Ugh. But if you have not heard about Andrei Chikatilo before, there was actually a book and it was like best selling, and a movie called Citizen X, which you are able to check out and learn more about, and learn about the things that didn't fit in this short video. But yeah, it's crazy to just think about it. And yeah, it's just crazy to think about it. It was also weird, the first image that came up on him, he's like smiling creepily. I'll try to put it right here. And my thought was, oh my goodness, he looks like Michael Keaton. And I love Michael Keaton. So hopefully I can see Michael Keaton from now on without associating him to Andrei Chikatilo. Chikatilo. I think it's Tilo now that I said Chikatilo, but I think it's Chikatilo. I hope you liked this case today. Hopefully I'll get better at remembering all the facts while doing my makeup. What do you think about the makeup? I had this orange and blue, so I decided to do orange and blue. See, I had a plan today. So if you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you because I had a plan. But happy Valentine's Day. Stay safe. Make great choices that don't put you in the woods with a crazy serial killer. And until next time, bye.